Madness, more specifically, March Madness. It is crazy what is happening right now. Um, every year, you think, can it possibly get any better? And every year it does. I'm telling you, right now, it is unpredictable almost as who can win this tournament because that's how crazy this year's March Madness is. And on top of that, we've got madness not only happening there, but we've got madness happening in Major League Baseball right now. I'm going to go through and tell you exactly what I'm talking about. And if you know, you know. But I'm your host, Matthew Raridan, and this is Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. What's going on, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. And if you have been watching our last couple episodes, yes, it has been centered around March Madness, the basketball tournament, and well, why not? It is one of the most entertaining spectacles in all of sports, and it happens one time a year. You want to turn into this, even if you aren't a basketball fan or a college fan. Trust me, you want to turn into this because it's going to knock your socks off just with how crazy it is. But we're going to talk about that. But first, we are going to talk about some development news that's happening in MLB. But before that, I want to introduce my co-host here today, and that is none other than David Street.
Hey, y'all.
And David here is repping Florida Gators. I mean, you can't go wrong there. You always rep your team no matter what. Just a little bit of foreshadowing. We will be talking about in depth specifically. I know David will with the Florida Gators game against Colorado. No, Dion was not there, if you're asking. But the Florida Gators did lose that game, but David will have plenty to talk about. But a true fan wears their colors through thick and thin. So props to you, David. But I want to dive into this news developing right now in Major League Baseball. First, I want to talk about the Dodgers versus Padres, the series in Korea. If you guys didn't know, regular season baseball actually started. It started what 2-3 days ago when the Los Angeles Dodgers met the San Diego Padres in Korea for a 2-game series. And you might be scratching your head hearing that and looking at the scoreboards and seeing, well, there's still spring training going on. That's because you're absolutely right. There is. And on top of that, the Dodgers and Padres still have spring training games to play. So, yes, you're not tripping. It sounds weird. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this before. And it just caught me off guard because it didn't really seem like it was out there a whole lot broadcasted. But yeah, the Dodgers and Padres opened up the actual MLB regular season series in Korea where they played each other for a 2-game series, which they split 1 game apiece. And I'll tell you what, the second game they played was crazy. It was a high scoring matchup between the two, and it was the MLB debut of Yamamoto, which was a highly regarded phenom from Japan. And well, he didn't make it out of the first inning. That's how bad it was. I mean, welcome to the show. You come in, give up 5 runs. Guess what, buddy? You're out. So he learned the hard way that the MLB is for real. It's legit. I'm not saying Japan isn't, because there is some amazing talent that has come out of Japan. And speaking of probably one of the best talents to ever come out of Japan, his name is Shohei Ohtani. And yes, you've probably heard of his name as being the highest paid baseball player of all time if you look at his total contract, being just a stud in the Major League Baseball. Or you probably heard of his name in the last 48 hours as his interpreter has now been fired for gambling and fraud. And this gets really deeper. David, I mean, have you even heard of this story, kinda what's happening, what's unfolding in front of us?
I have not, and also from what I've from what I've gathered, because there is still so much to uncover here. But people are saying that this is essentially another Pete Rose situation. Like I've seen, and again, I'm not making any accusations. I'm only saying what I've heard. But I've seen people say that apparently Otani was in on this or something like that. Again, I'm not saying it,
Yeah.
but I'm just telling you what I've heard.
Oh, I mean, the internet, it'll tell you everything.
True.
So, whether it's true or not, the internet does tell you everything, but, there's definitely a lot more to this story that has not really been uncovered yet, I'll say that, because he his interpreter got fired because he not only stole $4.5 million from Otani's bank account, but was doing, gambling with an illegal bookie, I wanna say, that's what they're saying, but
Mhm.
it does get weird. It's not necessarily yeah, you're seeing a lot of Pete Rose, like side by sides because, well, Pete Rose, if you didn't know, being banned from MLB, all-time hits leader, and well, he was banned by the MLB, hasn't made it to Hall of Fame yet. But Otani, if he was in on this, wasn't betting on any baseball games. It was mainly international soccer, is what I'm gathering. But it's more the fact of this was coming from his bank account. Did you
Mhm.
not know $4.5 million was coming out of your bank account? The first story that came out with Otani's reps was Otani wired the money to pay up this guy's gambling debts of $4.5 million. And then quickly "Oh, let's scratch that out, reverse. Um, no, Otani had no knowledge of this. This caught us off guard. This guy had access to Otani's account and stole $4.5 million. So you're hearing two different stories right there
Mhm.
from his reps, which doesn't sound good. And then MLB, they were quick to say, "No, we're not going to investigate Otani. He's the victim here. You know, there's no need to look into him." Well, as of about maybe an hour or two ago, the MLB has announced that they are launching a formal investigation into not necessarily Otani, but Otani and the interpreter of what exactly is going on. Otani does not have to be involved in this. He is allowed to because the MLB's Players Union Association. He can opt out of this, but it's more so of they want to know. Well, if not necessarily if Otani was in on this, but what exactly happened because it just sounds like such a fishy situation here that, well, they need to come down to the bottom to.
Well, I mean, I think they're probably just investigating just to say that they investigated. To be honest, I don't really envision much coming out of this because I don't think the MLB wants to damage the reputation of the most marketable star that it's had in quite some time. So they'll do their due diligence. I'm sure they'll do a little bit of digging around, but I think ultimately, I don't think much is going to come out of this because um, I think they're trying to keep the reputation of their star clean.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Otani can absolutely be the victim here. He may not have even known whatsoever.
Yeah.
To me, Otani seems like a pretty stand-up guy. And you're absolutely right, David. The MLB, this is their star. How
Hmm.
much money he has brought in from Japan, with how much they actually love the game of baseball and how much they support the game of baseball. Now that Otani's here, it all started with Ichiro, and now we're
Hmm.
seeing it with Otani. That's the last thing the MLB wants. They don't
Well,
want
and
that.
yeah, exactly. And I think, well, the other thing too that you got to wonder is, listen, like, it's not uncommon for someone else to have access to your bank account. Obviously, if you're married, you more than likely have a joint bank account. Obviously, your bank is going to have access to your bank account, right? But like, how on earth does your interpreter have access to your bank account? Like, I wouldn't even give my best friend access to my bank account because never know. So, and again, I'm not trying to make any accusations here. I'm just asking questions, and it seems very fishy that someone who isn't even like he's not even part of his family, right? Like he's not a relative or anybody like that.
No, not that I know. Probably a friend.
Okay, but either way, like someone who is not part of his family, how on earth does he have access to to your bank account?
Yeah, exactly. Especially now that you just signed a $1 billion contract, practically. I mean, a lot of money there. I know he deferred most of it, but
Hmm.
still, Otani is making a lot of money regardless, and not just everyone should have access to that. So the fact that an interpreter did was weird. So I'll be interested to hear the actual story. I'm not saying that he's guilty of anything, but the fact that his reps came out with two different stories. Well, what exactly is the truth? Because well, I think it'd be good to know. So
Yeah, sure.
but with that being said, I just wanna get right into the other madness that's happening, that's March Madness. As you know, day 1 is over, where we saw half the matchups of the round of 64 take place, and as we're speaking, the other half is happening, and we've already before this show has started, we've actually already seen some of these matchups happen. But I want to talk about first some of the biggest upsets that have happened so far. I mean, we've seen Duquesne's beat BYU. That was a shocker. Both me and David had BYU winning that game. Let's see here. We've got
I mean,
Michigan State. I
so did
mean,
a lot of other people. Like I think I saw that Duquesne was the least picked 11 seed upset.
yeah, no one really saw it happening. No one really saw it
Yeah.
happening at all. Same thing with Michigan State. Don't really I'm not saying that was an upset, it was not, it was a 9 and 8 seed, but Michigan State, we did not expect to see this Michigan State, but once again, Tom Izzo, it's March, and just like David said the other day in the episode, I think Izzo has a 65%, like, chance to win against if
So
he's
something like that.
the
All I
lower
know,
seed.
yeah, all I know is Michigan State has a really crazy winning record in the Mizzo era when they enter the tournament as a lower seed.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it shows. That's exactly what happened. We saw Oregon beat South Carolina. Not necessarily an upset because Oregon, I think, was going into the game actually the favorites, and they looked really good. My Ducks looked really good. Dana Altman, just he knows how to coach when it comes to March as well. So I was really impressed with that. But
And your guy had 40 points. I mean,
yeah,
how often do you see a 40-point game in a college basketball
yeah.
game?
Yeah, I mean, I think, he either tied or he now has the record for Oregon Ducks for, highest scoring game in March Madness tournament, so I think the record might have been 39, but, it just shows that he showed up when it matters. I mean, the team did. The team looked fantastic, I'll tell you what, offensive-wise, but you know what team looked the opposite of fantastic? That was Kentucky. As they were upset by Oakland, and our very own David Strait predicted that, didn't you, David?
I don't like to brag, but facts are facts.
That they are, that they are. We actually almost saw another upset that David almost predicted as well later on, and that was Kansas and Samford. If you did not see this game, it was down to the wire. And I personally feel that the Samford guy blocked the ball right at the end, whereas the refs called it a foul.
Mhm.
David, I mean, do you see this as a foul or a clean block?
Oh, a clean block. And listen, I know in the end people are gonna want to say, well, you can't blame the refs, just play better. But you have to be absolutely blind if you thought that was a foul. So Stanford got absolutely hosed, and I feel sick for them.
Yeah, I mean, props to their head coach. I mean, he at the end he even said, he didn't dog on the refs or anything like that. It was just total respect there. Uh, Everyone knows that you try not to leave it into the refs' hands, umpires' hands, whatever it may, whatever the sport is. Try to
Right.
blow them out. So you don't have to use that as, I'll say, an excuse. But there were some more upsets that just happened right before we started this show, and I feel like it's only fitting that we talk about them. David, I'm gonna let you take the floor here on Colorado upsetting your Florida Gators.
Well, we came in as a 7 seed and Colorado came in as a 10 seed, but Colorado was actually favored by 1.5 points over us. And I think that's certainly understandable, since we were without the services of Micah Hamlockton. Um, it was listen, if you to a neutral fan, this was a very exciting game to watch. This was a great, just fantastic game of basketball between two high-powered elite offenses, right? But if you're a fan of either team, then just you knew how stressful it was, especially toward the we got off to a fast start, but just you know what's been Florida's problem all season long? Defending. We a great offensive team all season long, but defense was our weakness. And Colorado shot 60%. They shot 60% from the field, including 60% from three. And keep in mind, Florida shot well. We also shot well, right? We shot like 50% from the field goal range, and including like 40%, 44% from three. So we shot the ball pretty well, but Colorado was just better. And it just seemed like every time we had some momentum going for us, Colorado would always snatch it out of us, right? They would take it out of our hands. And of course, what helped Colorado was balanced scoring. All five of their guys were in double-digit scoring, and including their big guy Lampkin, who we just had no answer for that guy whatsoever. He just completely bullied us. He completely had his way with us. We had nothing for him at all. But shout out to Florida, because just when it seemed like Colorado was going to run away, we did not give up, and Walter Clayton Jr. just had that insane three, to tie the game. And just when it seemed like we were going to go to overtime, of course, Colorado ends up hitting a buzzer beater, and then we can't really do anything after that. So be a disappointing game overall. But when I look at the season, I mean, we've made progress in year two under Todd Golden. Last year we were 16-17, and we lost in the first round of the NIT. And we actually got killed by UCF in the first round of the NIT. But we made progress this year. Offense improved tremendously. We improved significantly in SEC play. And we had a very tight game against one of the best offensive teams in the country. But listen, I don't know if you're a Florida fan. Yeah, I think we have every right to be upset, because it's always upsetting when your team loses. But we also have to be realistic. I mean, this team was not good enough to win it all. I mean, I certainly did not have us winning at all. I had us losing to Marquette. I had us losing in the round of 32, because even though our offense I thought could hang with anybody, I knew that our bad defense, and again a defense that's been bad all year, I knew that would catch up to us eventually. And listen, you look over the years, and you point to one team that won it all. Like you point to one team that was bad on defense that won it all. Like even the worst defensive teams, like when you compare their defense to the defenses of other national champions. I mean, even those defenses were very very solid. But Florida's defense was our Achilles heel, and you're just not going to make it that far. Certainly, you're not going to win a championship when you have a defense as porous as ours was. So, all in all, great season overall. Disappointing that it ended this way, but we have a lot to look forward to, and we have a lot to build on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is still a lot of promise and potential there, considering the season they had. But that game right there, it doesn't get as March Madness as that game did. I mean, the fact that you scored 100 points, there was a buzzer beater. That's March Madness right there. And it's awesome. It sucks that it's your team, David, but in the end, I mean, as a fan, you gotta love that. You have to love seeing that in March Madness, and anything can happen. And speaking of anything can happen, let's talk about Yale and Auburn. Auburn came into
Mm.
this tournament disrespected, was a 4 seed, they should have never even been a 4 seed. They were a lot better than that. They were actually one of probably the most well-rounded teams going into this tournament.
Yeah, and now people are gonna say, "Hey, a 4 seed was too high for Auburn."
Yeah, you can never win,
Yeah,
and David even had them going to the Final Four because that's how much
true.
promise this Auburn team had. They were facing a Yale team that barely made it into a tournament with a buzzer beater in the Ivy League, conference tournament. They couldn't even hold Auburn's jockstrap essentially, and well, we were all wrong. We were all wrong as Yale came in and upset everyone as they won this game against Auburn. And Auburn, I mean, we know a couple Auburn fans, they were the ultimate choke artists this game, especially at the free throw line. It's the name is in the it's free throw. I mean, you're getting free points right there, and they could not. Yes, exactly. They could not make it at all. I mean, they could be on a cruise ship and still not hit the water, and it was just sad, and that's why it's so important to practice free throws because you never know when you're gonna need them. And guess what? Auburn needed them, and they could not get it. And, yeah, they lost in, really upset fashion, but Yale, great congrats to them. I mean, the fact that they were able to pull this off when no one, and I mean no one, had them winning this game.
Well, this kinda reminds me, almost 10 years ago, remember when they were also and
Baylor.
they faced Baylor as an underdog,
Mhm.
so it's deja vu all
Well,
over again.
interesting enough, that win was their first ever win in the tournament wa
Yeah.
against Baylor. Their
Were
second
there
win tonight.
I wonder if there were any, reporters who, asked, Janai Broom, "How does Yale out-rebound Auburn?"
Yeah, I
Remember
know.
that?
Oh my gosh,
Oh,
I
that
mean
was I mean, that was you know what? I'm glad the reporter asked it because we got one of the all-time funniest moments in March Madness history.
yeah, exactly. So look that up, people, but,
You grab
uh,
the ball, and that's what you call a rebound.
yes, that's a rebound, right?
Yep.
So, you know, my next question here, I'm gonna change it up. It was originally, is John Calipari a crook?
And he is.
Which, yes. But now I'm gonna change that. Is the SEC in basketball a bunch of crooks? Because as of right now, as we speak, the SEC is 1-5, and they came in tied in the tournament for the most teams represented of a single conference. So here they are, their lone win being Tennessee. They have Alabama playing here later. Uh, are they a bunch of crooks in this tournament, David?
I mean, you can't really argue against the results. You send the most teams to the tournament, well, tied for the most, and you're 1-5. Although looking at my phone here, Texas A&M might make it 2-6. So
True.
yeah,
I mean, they're facing, Nebraska
or
right now.
excuse me,
2
one,
and
two
2
and
and
five.
yeah,
I can't math.
yeah,
I've never been good at math.
it's okay,
But
but yeah,
all in all, your point still stands. Yes, the SEC is unfortunately, looking very fraudulent. And listen, I don't think SEC fans had anything to be too concerned about, even when we were off to an 0-2 start. Because, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I don't think South Carolina was as good as their record indicated. In fact, statistically speaking, they were actually the luckiest team in the country per Ken Palm. And then Mississippi State, you could argue, was the worst team entering the tournament, or excuse me, the worst SEC team entering the tournament. So it's like, okay, those teams will lose. You can chalk it off as well. I think most expected those teams to lose. But then things get concerning, of course, when Kentucky goes down, even though I personally predicted Kentucky to go down, right? Kentucky goes down, Florida goes down, Auburn goes down, and then who else went down? Is that it? So Kentucky, Florida, Auburn,
Mississippi
Michigan
State,
State. Okay, I named all of
yeah.
them.
Yeah, I mean, well, we had talked about on this show that, SEC, they're battle tested. they play in one of the toughest conferences in the league, and we thought that they were really going to show out in this tournament, at least to an extent, especially when you had one of their teams going to the Final Four, and so did I with Kentucky. Uh, and now look at us, goose eggs. It just they really they really did not exceed the expectations that we had for them. We're just fans, of course, spectators. It's tough in March. It really is.
Mhm.
You have to play your A game. You gotta be out there 100%. And if you're not, it's going to show. And we saw that already with the upsets of Kentucky, Auburn, and Florida. Even though Florida and Auburn were close games as well, but in the end, it happened. And so now I look here at the current brackets, and I'm going to read this based off of the wins that have already happened. And it's not like when I get to the second game, you're gonna be like, "Wow, I did not see that coming." But the first game, we now have UConn and Northwestern facing off. Okay, me and David had that correct. But then we got San Diego State and Yale, which San Diego State did make it pretty
Yeah.
far last year, so I will give them props there. Then you got Duquesne's and Illinois, Washington State and Iowa State, North Carolina, Michigan State, Clemson and Baylor, which that Clemson and Baylor game, the way that I saw Clemson playing tonight and how Baylor did yesterday against, the
Yeah.
toothpaste, um, that's gonna be a good game. That
Yeah.
really is because
And a lot like New Mexico was one of the more popular upset picks. A lot of people had them making a pretty significant run.
yeah, I mean, even that I was watching the game, even the announcers were saying, I think Clemson, they they held on to that they used that as fuel to their fire that people were talking about that they were gonna get upset by New Mexico State, and it showed. They looked really good that game. And then
Yeah.
Dayton. Let's talk about Dayton here because me and you both predicted Nevada to win this game, and Nevada was ahead by a significant amount,
Yeah,
and
they were
Dayton
up
took
like
the
56
Flyers.
to 39 at one point, I think. They were up by 17 at one point.
Yeah, and Dayton stormed back and they won this game, which even though they were the 7th seed versus the 10th seed, they were practically the underdogs. I mean, people weren't really expecting them to win this game, and they did. And then you got Arizona. Arizona, they started off a little slow. I mean, they were given the Long Beach State Beach, the dirt bags, David likes to call them. They gave them a little chance earlier in the game and momentum, but then in the end, Arizona really did take control of this game. So you got that right there. You got Tennessee and Texas, the battle of the UTs. That's going to be fun. And of course, my personal interest right here, and actually, if you're a college fan, it's also a great game, is Oregon and Creighton. Dana Altman coached 16 years as the head coach at Creighton before he came over here to the Ducks. I mean, it's going to almost feel like a homecoming game, even though it's in Pittsburgh, but it's still going to be a great game nonetheless between those two teams. And then Kansas and Gonzaga, also another great game. And then the last two that we have right now is Marquette and Colorado. Didn't really see that. And then Oakland and NC State. NC State did win the game, even though they were the 11th seed, but they had the momentum. I think most people had their money on NC State against Texas Tech.
Yeah.
So crazy.
Yeah. I mean, and then hey, what did I tell you about Oregon, man? Like I know the tournament is not over yet, but I've got them in my final four. And if they play like that, then I think they got a good shot. I
Yeah.
mean, then again, you can't really expect one of your guys to average 40 in the tournament.
Yeah, but I mean, it wasn't just him that scored. I mean, Fale, I mean, our big man, he scored plenty too. I mean, I think our whole starting five was in double digits. I mean, it was a total offensive type game for the Ducks, but that's Creighton's game too. And Creighton though controls the pace. It was close a little bit with Akron early on, and Tim Brando, who's a great sports analyst, he even mentioned online, he said, people are going crazy because Akron is pretty close with Creighton right now. But guys, this is where Creighton wants them. Creighton controls the tempo in the game, and ultimately they'll pull away. And that's exactly what they did. They had them right where they wanted them, kind of dangling here, here's the meat, dangling it right there. And then they took it and that is a team that shoots the 3 ball incredible. Every time their guy got the ball, it seemed like, any of their starting 5, including their big mans, can make the 3. So, that is a team to be scared of later on, and that's why I have Creighton making a pretty decent run. I really see the talent there, and I think that they could do that if they could continue to control the tempo, but, of course, I don't want them to against my Ducks. Of course, I want my Ducks to win, but as far as my bracket wise goes, if Creighton does win, at least my bracket will be somewhat right. Because as of right now, unless you are um, Bijan Robinson, you aren't going to have a pretty good looking bracket right now because his was perfect going into today, which was crazy. But he picked, gosh, who was it?
I think he picked a I think he picked Western Kentucky over Marquette. He picked the 15
Yes,
over 2.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Guy knows his stuff somehow, or he's just lucky. I mean, it seems like I'm seeing all online people
Mhm.
are saying, "Here I am, a big sports guy. I picked all these games, and my bracket's looking like crazy." My wife doesn't know anything about sports, and she's got like 10 out of 12 picks right. It's like, well, what the? It's
Yeah.
just how it is. I mean, it's like give them a dartboard or something. They'll
Yeah.
say, "Ooh, I like that mascot better. I'm gonna
Well,
pick them."
I mean, it feels kind of superstitious, but there is also some truth to the matter that, the less you know, the better your picks will be.
'Cause you're not thinking about it.
Yeah,
See, us,
exactly.
we're gonna overthink it. That's just how it is, and that's why
Yeah.
I've gotten most of my stuff wrong. I start
Yeah.
overthinking it, and then I'm like, "Alright."
I mean,
I will
I
Yeah,
mean, I think there's definitely moments where I feel like, going the logical route is the best thing to do. I mean, that's what I did when I picked Oregon over South Carolina, right?
yeah,
But then, of course, there's picks you make, and more often than not, just because, hey, you know what? Screw it. I just feel like picking this team, and we'll see what happens there.
yeah. Well, I wanna ask one last question to you, David, before we go on to our next topic. Besides the obvious, such as like UConn, okay, and some of the top seeds, which team looks pretty legit to you that could make a possible run in this March Madness tournament based off of yesterday's and today's results?
Mm. Well, I think Marquette. I know Marquette kind of had a bit of a scare with Western Kentucky there, especially in the beginning, but they pulled ahead. Marquette looked really good. Oregon, even though they're the 11 seed. And then I think I saw Iowa State play last night, right?
Hmm.
Okay, and I think they had a pretty good win. But if I had to pick one team, um, I'm gonna go with Marquette. I
Yeah.
Aside from UConn, of course.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you got Marquette's a 2 seed, Creighton being a 3, Baylor being a 3, and of course UConn being a 1. I definitely could see Oregon, like you were saying. A team that actually really surprised me that looked pretty like complete in their game was actually Michigan State yesterday. Their guard, I'll tell you what, watching that guy play the ball at the 1, he looked really good and really comfortable. I know they were playing Mississippi State, but just overall as a team, they looked scary good. So I think Michigan State, you may have to keep an eye on them, but they are playing North Carolina. So we'll definitely see how that goes. But uh, complete teams that really look legit. Oregon, they did impress me a lot, and I would love to see them go all the way, of course. But yeah, Marquette has been a great team pretty much the whole year, which is why they're a 2 seed. But I could definitely see them doing it, but Colorado looked great today too, but I know Florida is, not the best on defense, so that could also kind of but
Yeah,
neither are they. I mean, they also let them put up 100 points too, so it was
yeah.
offense against offense. That's just how it is sometimes, but I want you to talk about this next one, David, because I know you're really irked about this situation, rightfully so. As we know, right now in college football, we're going to transfer over here to college football right now. NIL has just taken its toll in college football, some good, some bad, but they never really took the time to think this through when they rolled it out. And now we are seeing examples of people that probably should have been maybe flagged or not allowed to do certain things that got them money in NIL and transferring. And one of the names that comes to mind, which is right now, it's a developing story, that is Caden Proctor, who transferred from Alabama to Iowa, collected some dough, now is heading back to Tuscaloosa. David, talk us more about this situation and just how stupid it is.
Well, I mean, first things first, I don't necessarily blame Proctor, even though I do think that he pulled off a very, very dirty move. I think he quite clearly screwed Iowa. Um, but I don't necessarily blame him. I more so blame the idiotic rule.
Mhm.
I mean, you should not be allowed to transfer out of one school to another school and then literally in the same offseason transfer from that school back to the school that you transferred from. Like how on earth first of all, I want to know when these rules were being put in place, how how these people didn't even address this loophole is beyond me, right? Because there is no way anybody can be okay with what's going on here. And again, like I said, I don't necessarily blame the player. I'm blaming the system because the system is a farce, right? The fact that a player can just do what Caden Proctor did is just insane to me. But again, Proctor is not innocent here. I think he totally screwed Iowa, and he's probably the most hated man in that state right now.
And if I am correct, he's from Iowa.
He
So
is,
it was like a homecoming. And see that yeah, I you don't want to blame the player, you want to
yeah.
blame the rule, but at the same time, some blame has to go to him because it's like buyer's remorse. You
Hmm.
transfer from Alabama to your home state of Iowa, and then you transfer back to Alabama all within the same time frame. And
Yeah.
it's like I said, having buyer's remorse, and it's like, well, that's also on him. You can't just really do that. But and if I saw correctly, I mean, I'm pretty sure he collected like $100,000, which I don't think that they're going to ask back.
Yeah.
But yeah, he went and collected some money and then now it's back to Alabama. And I know there's a lot of stuff going on with the NCAA and the government right now. And that's partially why this is being allowed right now, because I'm pretty sure there is a loophole because of the ongoing court battles with the NCAA
Mhm.
and the government. So, uh, situations like that, it's almost like you're taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
There are players like we saw last year with Tez Walker with North Carolina. I mean,
Mhm.
what happened with him was dirty, and he had to sit out the first several games, and luckily he was able to come back. But they were trying their hardest not to let him play. And it's like, all right,
Yeah.
he's one of those players that deserved to have played and deserved,
Mhm.
he did it right. Whereas you got players like Caden Proctor that nothing's gonna happen to them, and I don't wish anything bad to happen to them, but you just can't do that. It's pretty ridiculous how that's just happening all willy-nilly.
Well, and let's go over the timeline here, right? High school, Caden Proctor initially commits to his home state school,
Mm,
Iowa, and then he decommits and commits to Alabama. And I'm sure Iowa fans were upset at the time, but I think it was understandable because he was a 5-star recruit. He was one
mhm,
of the top recruits in the country. And no offense to Iowa, but you have a much better shot at winning a national championship at Alabama than you do at Iowa. So in that sense, I don't blame Proctor. Then what happens? Alabama has its season. Coach Saban steps down, and then Proctor transfers back to Iowa. So at this point, I don't have any issue with what
no,
Proctor did, and I think if you're a neutral, then you can understand. You can certainly see it from Proctor's perspective. He didn't really do anything wrong.
yeah,
But then it's transferring to Iowa, collecting all that dough, like you said, and then transferring back to Alabama. Yeah, all sympathy that I had for him is now
mhm,
gone because I see that he is a dirty crook, and that's I don't know what else I don't know what else you want me to say. Like, is he a bad person? I don't know him personally, But what I do know is that he performed the actions of a dirty crook, and you have to be blind if you don't see it that way, or you're an Alabama fan.
Yeah, true. Or you're an Alabama fan, exactly. And, I mean, yeah, being part of the Crimson Tide, we saw it happen once Nick Saban retired. When they lost recruits, people transferred. That's normal. I mean, this is the greatest coach of all time that you were hoping to play for. You were expecting to play for, and he retires. No one knew it was really going to happen, and now you're like, well, maybe I do want to go back to Iowa. That is where I'm from. Perfect. Yeah, dude, by all the way. That's what the transfer portal's for. And he does it. That's great. But then, yeah, collects some money and then turns around and goes back. It's one thing if you're like, um, now that I realize I'm going back and I got this money from Iowa, or the NIL money. Well, I gotta give it back and then I'll transfer. Or you know what? I don't know if I could give it back, so I'll just stay because but no, it's just collect it, gone. I'm back in Alabama, y'all. Pizza's on me tonight.
Yeah.
So it's just it's not a pretty
Well,
situation, but yeah.
I mean, and like, college football is pretty much moving away from the reason why I and so many other people love it in the first place. Because when you have the NFL, when people are to a very large degree motivated by the paycheck that they get, motivated by the income they get, right? With college football, the motivation was just about the pure love of the game. And so many people could gravitate toward that. Well, thanks to the NIL and the transfer portal and all that, that's pretty much just vanished now. It's almost vanished at this point. And now, am I saying that like, oh, I'm never going to watch college football again? No, I'm not. I'm not saying that. Of course, I'm still going to watch college football because I'm a sports fan and I'm a glutton for that sort of stuff. Okay, but that doesn't change the fact here. That doesn't change what I am saying. That there's really just no pure joy in college football. The love of the game for college football is disappearing.
Yeah, you're seeing a lot more business side to it, and there are business things that they're doing that I do support, but uh, you're just not. Yeah, you're not seeing the passion anymore, and it does take away. It does show. It really does. If you're a fan, you're seeing it. So it is unfortunate. I mean, college football will still always be loved. It'll still be crazy, but you're not seeing how it used to be. So it sucks. It does, but they just need to come to a conclusion of these rules and everything because, like I said, they laid it out without any thoughts on how it should be played out. So that's kind of on them. They're gonna have to fix this because they created it. So till then, though, we're just gonna have to kind of deal with it. I mean, it'd be nice for me to go somewhere, collect 100K, and then come back. It'd be pretty dope. But
Yeah.
I'm not Caden Proctor, so I can't do that. But what you guys could do is you guys could hit that like and subscribe button. You could share these videos, and you could also drop in the comment your thoughts, your predictions, your opinions, anything you name it. Go ahead and drop it in there. If you try to go in there and say that your bracket is still perfect, I will not believe you until you show me otherwise. But if it is ends up being that, that's pretty awesome. You are great at guessing, or you should play the lottery. But my bracket is all over the place. I still got 3 out of 4 teams still in it. So does David. But in the end, we will see what happens. We could see some more upsets. We could see UConn just go and repeat again. You just never know.
Yeah.
So, but go ahead and drop your predictions, guys, and let us know how you are feeling about the tournament if you feel confident. But till next time, guys, we are rounding third and we are headed for home.